Before we begin today's program, we would like to remind the audience of the following. The video and audio functions of our audience will be disabled during the lecture. For questions, clarifications, and/or comments, we encourage everyone to use the Q&A tab and the chat room in the Zoom webinar or the comment section in Facebook or YouTube. We will try to address as many relevant questions and comments during the session. Please be respectful in the chat room, Q&A tab, and comment section. Please follow the Ramon Magsaysay Award on our social media accounts in Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. For more information on the Ramon Magsaysay Award and this year's laureates, please visit our website at www.rmaward.asia. Thank you for joining us today. We will begin the program in a few minutes. Hello and welcome to the 2023 Ramon Magsaysay Transformative Leadership Institute online lecture series featuring 2023 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee from Timor-Leste, EUGENIO LEMOS. Ego will be sharing with us how he has combined indigenous knowledge and permaculture in order to provide a sustainable solution to the country's agriculture and environmental problems. He will be joined later by a group of experts as they share their take on Ego's presentation. After that, we will open the floor to questions from our audience. To formally open our event, please welcome to your grid the President of the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation, Ms. Susan B. Afan.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Manila, Philippines. The lecture series that we have this very afternoon actually is to learn about their unique leadership journeys and extraordinary work. Today, we have the pleasure and privilege to listen, interact, and engage with one of Asia's cultivator of food sovereignty, Mr. EUGENIO LEMOS. In the next 1.5 hours, we will learn how he has integrated local Timorese indigenous wisdom with permaculture techniques through his organization, Permatil. Ego will reveal to us the concept of food sovereignty and why it is important for countries and communities alike. He will further explain the support that farmers and communities need in order to achieve food sovereignty. Sharing my excitement this afternoon are members, of course, of the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation's Board of Trustees, including Dr. Shelito F. Habito, who will also serve as our moderator. We at the board and the foundation are truly very blessed and fortunate to have Shell with us. So let me go ahead and introduce Ego to all of you. Food sufficiency, environmental conservation, local autonomy, and social equity are urgent concerns today. An inspiring and charismatic Timorese who has experienced the turbulent years of his country's struggle for independence at a very young age has taken upon himself the responsibility of helping his community. Ego Lemos was born to a family of farmers. He studied agriculture in a local university and started a group to promote organic farming. In 1999, an Australian permaculture trainer introduced him to permaculture, a holistic system for creating and managing sustainable agrosystems. To him, it was not simply about transferring technologies, but the cultivation of an ethos of responsible relations to nurture and people expressed in the words earth care, people care, and fair share. Ego saw that many elements of this system were already present in traditional Timorese culture, and he resolved that this was something he would devote himself to promoting among his people. In the roster of Magsaysay awardees from previous years, there were outstanding natural scientists for the people who have since expanded their agro-scientific engagement with the poor and have increased agricultural productivity in their countries. Some of them are Yang Sang Koma, the 2012 Ramon Magsaysay awardee from Cambodia, who championed sustainable agriculture. He founded the Cambodian Center for Study and Development in Agriculture in 1997, which introduced the system of rice intensification in the country. It's also known as SRI. SRI is suitable to the country's agricultural conditions and definitely improved rice production in Cambodia. Another is 1988 Ramon Magsaysay awardee from Japan, Masanobu Fukuoka. He advocated natural farming methods that required inexpensive inputs and creates no pollution. The farmers today continue to earn profits from his system since their chemical-free produce is highly prized by very health-conscious consumers, and there's more and more of those health-conscious consumers. The Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation consistently uncovers individuals dedicated to environmentally responsible agriculture. And so, for all of us, it truly is a treat to learn more about EUGENIO LEMOS and his work. So now, let us watch this short video about him.
After 24 years of conflict, East Timor now stands on the threshold of what we all hope will be a process of orderly and peaceful transition towards independence.
In 1999, after 500 years of colonial and invaded occupation, the world's newest nation at that time was left to rehabilitate its people, its land, and its spirit. Permatil's founder, Ego Lemos, recognised the urgent need to sustainably redevelop Timor-Leste's natural environment, working with traditional culture and knowledge. Through access to permaculture knowledge and tools, Permatil helped vulnerable communities to begin the long process of recovery and rehabilitation. Permatil began building partnerships and networks across the country with governments, NGOs, schools, communities, farmers, and individuals. Long-term partnerships based on community-led plans were a key focus for delivering meaningful impacts. A national farmers network was established to give farmers a voice, to help disseminate important knowledge, and to improve marketing and small business opportunities. Permaculture design and practice is drawn from Indigenous knowledge the world over. Permatil not only include Timorese cultural practices in their work, but use permaculture to strengthen understanding and use of traditional cultural practice in a modern context, including celebrations, ceremonies, and integration of traditional ecological, plant, and medicinal knowledge. Passing this knowledge on to the next generations is a growing part of Permatil's work. In 2008, Permatil published a permaculture guidebook from Timor-Leste. It It was the first comprehensive practical permaculture guide for Timor-Leste and for the tropics. It became known as a gift from Timor-Leste. Starting in 2010, acknowledging Timor-Leste's youthful population demographic and in recognition of the role of young people in ensuring the long-term sustainability of Timor-Leste and our planet, Permatil focused on youth empowerment initiatives. PermaYouth was established, bringing together young people to learn about regenerative agriculture, food sovereignty, caring for the environment, water conservation, and working as a team. In 2016, in collaboration with Permatil, Timor-Leste was the first country to incorporate a permaculture school gardens program in the national primary school curriculum. Water restoration and conservation projects, starting in 2018, are growing exponentially and also have a strong youth focus. Our long-term vision for sustainable development centres on opening up access to permaculture on a global scale, especially majority world tropical countries. In 2014, we commenced work on an international edition of the Tropical Permaculture Guidebook. The revised and expanded edition is a comprehensive permaculture reference guide for tropical regions. Launched in October 2018, the international edition has to date been accessed in 174 countries on a pay-what-you-can basis. Permatil Global, a new not-for-profit organisation, was established by the producers of the Tropical Permaculture Guidebook so that we can form partnerships and networks with groups around the world. We aim to increase the reach and scope of the guidebook, as well as embark on exciting new projects and be active members of the global permaculture and regenerative movements. Our work is underpinned by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our long-term vision for sustainable development centres on opening up access to permaculture, equipping people throughout the world with the tools and knowledge to improve food security and to live sustainably. It means our solution is truly innovative and grounded in tolerance, sustainability and opportunities for all, no matter wealth, location or status. We're excited by the possibilities of taking permaculture further and wider, shaping a sustainable future for everyone, everywhere.
Wow. I love the music, and I feel like, we were transported to East Timor and we had a glimpse of the agricultural context of what our speaker this afternoon is going to be talking about. So I would like to welcome to the grid, I know the person, the man of the hour that we've all been wanting to meet this afternoon, 2023 Ramon Magsaysay Awardee from Timor-Leste, Mr. EUGENIO LEMOS. Hello, Ego. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Susan. And everyone, thank you so much for attending this public lecture today. Yeah.
Ego, I can still remember the day that I called you and told you that you won the award. And look at us now. You are now doing your first lecture in front of, a lot of people all over Asia wanting to listen and learn from, from your Permatil organization.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
My presentation,
Go ahead.
Can start. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So let's get down to business. To minimize technological glitches, we have requested Ego to please pre-record his public lecture. After the video, however, he will rejoin us for a live discussion and question and answer. May we request everyone to turn off your cameras and microphones as we now view Ego's lecture.
Hi everyone, I hope you're well and sound. Before start, I would like to pay my respect and acknowledge our traditional owner, past, present, and the future. Today I'm going to present to you topic cultivating food sovereignty, harnessing traditional wisdom. So I'm presenting from the sunny day of Dili, Timor-Leste. What is food sovereignty? Food sovereignty is a food system that has its own local origin. It's adaptable and culturally integrated with the community and local environment. Globally, more than enough food is produced to feed the world. However, recent globalization of the free market system has eroded local control of food production and consumption in many areas of the globe. As a result, traditional diet have been undermined, leading to malnutrition. Food sovereignty is the right of people, community, and countries to decide their own agricultural, labor, fishing, food, and land policies which ecologically, socially, economically, and culturally appropriate to their unique circumstances. The people must access to the land, water, genetic resources, and livestock breed. While food security is defined when all people at all times have physical, economic access to sufficient food, safe, and nutritious food that meet their dietary need, and food preference for an active and healthy life. Food security concept also focuses only on 4 dimensions: physical availability of food, economic and physical access to food, food utilization, and stability of other 3 dimensions over time. Timor-Leste is a small island nation which considered as an agrarian country. However, due to lack of clear policies on food and agriculture, Timor-Leste today remain vulnerable to external factors. Farmers are losing their knowledge of saving seeds, and traditional eating patterns are disappearing along with food processing and diversity of food sources. Timor-Leste now depend too much on imported rice. It's increasing annually. The country is also affected by El Nino and La Nina and climate change that damage the country's natural resources and cause the collapse of local food markets. Permaculture can be described as a permanent agriculture and permanent culture. Permanent agriculture involve family garden, agriculture, agroforestry, animal management, and aquaculture. It is a sustainable way of improving land, which is provide income to produce for the people. Permanent culture means working with, protecting, and encouraging a strong, resilient culture and environment. Permaculture provides the framework to design, create, and maintain communities where all part of our lifestyle, achieving sustainability and resilience. Technique and strategy are based on natural science and patterns, using integration, innovation, and regenerative practices to achieve goals. 3 permaculture ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share ensure that we considerate and thoughtful in working with the environment, respecting all people, and acting to improve the future. The 12 permaculture principle encourages and challenges us to be creative, follow initiative, and use our common sense. Permaculture Timor-Leste, or Permatil, as you already saw on the video explaining about the history of Permatil. However, I first learned about permaculture from Steve Crane from Australia, right after Timor-Leste gained its independence through the UN referendum in August 1999. So we worked together to introduce permaculture across the country to provide immediate livelihood to people and also deal with environmental issues that community facing. We train government staff, community leaders, and farmers. Permatil, together with civil society groups, community leader, and farmers group, has been implementing permaculture project in every district of the country. We also encourage the government to implement permaculture ethic and practices. And Permatil is a leader to rebuilding and regenerating the country in a sustainable, culturally appropriate way. The project serves as a unique model for bringing through sustainability and resiliency to the community with no outside intervention. Farmers and individuals were empowered to decide what was appropriate for their families and their communities. Through cost-efficient and nature-based solutions and eco-based approaches, we work with local people to address the societal and environmental challenges. Permatil has 5 priority areas. First priority is permaculture in action. 74% of Timor-Leste population aged below 35 years old, makes 67% of the working age population, yet only 14% are actively participating in the labor force. Targeted strategies are urgently need to motivate and mobilize Timor-Leste's youth to develop a community of young leaders and support the next generation to create sustainable generation change. So by investing in youth today, Permatil is equipped next generation of citizens with knowledge, skill, capacity, and confidence to significantly improve rural livelihood. The Perma Camp is an annual event of Permatils. As you see on the video as well, since 2008, 6 national and 5 district camps have been organized, and over 5,500 young people have been trained. Perma Youth Movement in Timor-Leste brings together young people to learn about sustainable agriculture, local food, caring for the environment, water conservation, leadership, and working as a team. The Perma Youth Movement built up youth volunteerism, which is an important factor for societal transformation in communities. Every site has been used for Perma Youth Camp has become youth learning center that use local resources, appropriate technology, and low-cost solution. The priority second is planting water, growing communities. Water scarcity is a critical issue throughout Timor-Leste. Spring and water source dries out during dry season. This is negatively impacting on community access to clean water for household consumption as well as for agriculture production. The lack of rural livelihood accessibility to water disproportionately affecting women and children. To address this issue, Permatil launched an action campaign called Planting Water, Growing Communities. It's focused on community-based water restoration and catchment management using natural-based solutions and indigenous knowledge. This aims to increase community knowledge, skill, and attitude run effective watershed management using approaches that scalable and cost efficient. This process inclusive and right-based and has multiple benefits for climate change adaptation, biodiversity, and human well-being. Indigenous knowledge of the land, environment, and how it has changed over time is the starting point for any intervention. Permatil developed intervention in partnership with community, sharing knowledge about sustainable water cycle, how to effectively plant water, as well as giving specific technical advice so community can maintain the intervention. Over time, this will store water, refresh groundwater, and reforest surrounding arid areas. The project will also immediate effect by slowing down the flow of water in rainfall event, thereby reducing erosion and the effect of flash flooding. The reservoir may be used for aquaculture, improving local food production. Permatil has successfully revived more than 400 water springs that now have running water all year round. For this intervention has been done in more than 500 communities across Timor-Leste. So the priority 3, reforestation, that planting multiple functioning tree species for sustainable land management. Forest logging, burning, and land clearing practices destroy forests, contributing to climate change. Many trees planting projects planting species for market purpose only, and usually the species are invasive. And the introduced tree take too much groundwater and nutrient from the ground, as this can kill other trees, creating a monoculture forest. Permatil programs focus on planting multiple function tree species for sustainable land management. This includes trees species that provide food sources for the community, home for the wildlife, improve soil fertility, provide sustainable wood fuel, and at the same time reduce carbon emission. For the past few years, Permatil has planted over 50,000 of tree species that cover at least 12,500 hectares of land. Priority 4, Permatil permaculture gardening in schools. Facilitate learning in a living science laboratory. In 2015, Timor-Leste has adopted the policy of school gardening known as Horta Escolar. So the school gardening program was declared as a compulsory subject under discipline of art and culture for all basic education students, with a unit called TOS Permacultura. So as you see here, we have the book for the kids. This includes garden design, organic compost making, multiplying microorganisms, seed saving, living fence, horticulture, and tree nursery. This includes creative way of reusing trash by the school student, and if implemented in all schools, would begin to transform learning environment in the primary school. The main objective of school gardening are create a living laboratory by shifting from passive learning inside classroom into an active learning outside classroom. Learn better nutrition and help students and their families creating kitchen gardening at the household level. Through the program, 254 school gardening so far, and practices in younger generation, benefiting around 41,500 students and their family directly impacted. Priority 5 is scaling up from local to the global. As you see on the history video as well, that in 2018, Permatil published an updated book, expanded international edition from Permaculture Guidebook. This new edition is called International Edition, a gift from Timor-Leste to the world. This tropical permaculture guidebook is published in English and Tetum language with 4 key tropical languages such as French, Portuguese, Spanish, and Bahasa Indonesia, currently being planned. A year later, in 2020, with the support from Permatil's international volunteer, which is I could not mention all of their name. However, Permatil Global was established in Australia as an NGO to support Permatil Timor-Leste and take permaculture tools and knowledge to everyone, everywhere through education resources, including new language, through education resources. So it's about the tropical permaculture guidebook. Last this practical guidebook towards strong, resilient, and sustainable community across the globe. So right now, over 120,000 chapter has been downloaded in over 174 countries around the globe. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ego, for sharing with us your journey in permaculture and how you made the young people not just understand, but get involved in what we're trying to do. So today's moderator, Dr. Shelito F. Habito, a trustee of the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation, is taking over. He was also Secretary of Socioeconomic Planning in the cabinet of President Fidel V. Ramos from 1992 to 1998. Currently, he is not just a columnist, but he is also the chairman of a think tank, Brain Trust Incorporated, and is professor of economics at the Ateneo de Manila University. May I now turn over the session to our wonderful moderator and panelist, Dr. Shel Habito. Shel?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan, for that introduction. And good afternoon to our dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. Before I call on our panelists for their reactions, I would like to kick things off and ask Mr. Lemos himself a couple of questions of my own. Mr. Lemos, or please allow me to address you by the name you're popularly known by in your wide circles, Ego.
Yes.
Ego, have you been, you have been both an inspiration and an example to many, many people in your country, and I'm sure beyond the confines of Timor-Leste as well. Especially more so now with this Ramon Magsaysay Award recognition. I'm sure many, many more outside of your country will actually give attention to what you're doing. But tell me, what would you say has been the greatest stumbling block in your work and advocacy for permaculture towards food sovereignty? And how have you tried to overcome these challenges posed by those obstacles?
Thank you, Dr. Shel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Susan. So I think the obstacle for permaculture is since when, especially when we're implementing in Timor-Leste, around early after independence, permaculture is not accepting, by especially by policy making in the country. Even though the practical of permaculture system is already with the people for a long time, for centuries, but that's not as a barrier for us to continue working. And we're working mainly with the community and especially with young people directly. So slowly it shows the result. And later on, it's been accepted widely. And government, especially one Ministry of Education, has adopted permaculture to introduce into national curriculum for strengthening, reinforce the permaculture gardening in school. So that's one of the great success that we have. And second, with water restoration, since Timor-Leste is a tropical country and facing a lot of challenge with climate change, and so many springs have been dried up. But with our intervention, technical intervention, with traditional knowledge, and it's able to show the proof to the people, to the government. And now this program has been adopted by the government for throughout the country for every activities, including water restoration, disaster risk management, and also how to reduce the flooding and so on. So I think in Timor-Leste, I could say we have great success how to bring permaculture into the society. But in the globally, well, I think we still need to work more just to prove to the world leader that permaculture is the right type of approach that we have to implement it right now, because today it's crucial for the our Earth, our global situation is need a permaculture practices. We don't need an industrial agriculture where this continue destroying our planet. So that's my from my views. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You remind me of an incident I experienced myself years ago when I was one of the judges for a national award, validating a local organic farming system program by a mayor. And when I asked the mayor what his biggest obstacle was, he frankly told me, well, it's the national government, because there seems to be some resistance precisely to things like this, especially when there are mainstream approaches that are being applied. So I'm glad that you're able to overcome that in Timor-Leste and winning them over practically. Now, my other question that I'm interested in is, I know that you have been specifically targeting on young people. And I think we all know that in many places, in this country, our own country, Philippines included, there's a lot of fear that agriculture may be dying because the young generation is no longer interested to pick up agriculture as an occupation. So I applaud your efforts to really focus on the young people in Timor-Leste. So my question is, how hard, how easy has it been for you precisely to bring in the young people? Is this an easy sell in Timor-Leste, or it does take some hard work to also get those young people in?
Thank you, Dr. Shell. Yeah, I think I think the issue of young people not interested in agriculture, it's a global issue, and also including Timor-Leste. But I think Timor-Leste, according to the data, is over 70% of the total population is under 35 years old. So the country is considered as the youngest country in the world. So we're looking into this situation, and the rural livelihood is the young people is left rural areas and then going seeking for a job or working in the urban areas, and most of them even go out of the country and working in the overseas. While we have so much potential in our country, especially natural resources, we have enough land to use the land as to create a sustainable employment and livelihood for the people. So therefore, because of that, we've been trying to working with young people. Slowly, we engaging young people in so many activities. I think one of chance that I'm also as a singer-songwriter, I sing song and I write many songs and perform, and also inviting young people to involve, and also involving other artists to be involved as well. So in that way, to make agriculture as a sexy job for the young people. So that's why often I used to say, Timor-Leste, we better do not call farmers, but we have to call youth farmers, because to be the farmers, you're not necessary to have cultivating the land all the time, but farming is part of our culture. So based on that, that's why we introduced a permaculture gardening into school gardening to miss education. That's the start of early childhood of involving the younger generation in using school gardening as a living laboratory for trial and error in the school garden, so that they could learn about when they go home, they could working with their family how to replicate the school garden model into a kitchen garden.
Well, thank you so much. In fact, I like the way you essentially put it, that first of all, you make it interesting for the young people by adding in the culture and the music element to it. Yeah. And indeed, agriculture, I guess that's the reason the term is there. Agriculture also is very much embedded in our cultures, right? So, well, again, thank you so much for that. Right. Yeah. I better give way to our discussants. And so let me start introducing them. Our first discussant is a Belgian permaculture practitioner and trainer who lives right here in the Philippines. His name is Mr. Bert Peters. Now, Bert is a Belgian by nationality, but very much a Filipino by heart. He has been a permaculture designer for over 20 years now. Bert has founded the Cabio Kid Foundation, Philippine Permaculture Association Incorporated, and recently, Brilliant Practices Permaculture. He currently leads the Philippine Permaculture Association Incorporated and is one of its board members. Now, joining Bert Peters also is a founder of an agro-social enterprise from the Philippines, Ms. Cherry Debrit Atilano. She is a Filipino social entrepreneur who heads her own company, Agrea, which is an innovative, inclusive, for-purpose agribusiness that is founded on sustainable agriculture, fair trade, and a replicable model of an agri-based economy. Cherry is a well-known influencer for the Filipino farmers and is being
go for. And I think it's really part of the power of one young and very small nation. And that brings me to the permaculture work we have been doing here in the Philippines, because I can only dream about what that would mean for 7,000 islands that maybe are about the size if permaculture would work for the Philippines in a similar way. For the past 20 years, we have been trying to work on that, helping to push through Philippine Permaculture Association, permaculture all over the country. And I can tell you, it's not an easy task, but it's rewarding in its own ways, just like I'm sure that this award is rewarding for you as well and for the whole nation of East Timor. I think there are so many similarities between your story and a Philippine setting, and that's what resonates with me. I can still remember when I started in the Philippines, the first 10 years, we were celebrating and supporting your struggle as a young nation to become independent. And I was just new in the Philippines into development work. I'm happy we are still here on the same scene, having achieved, on your side at least, having achieved so much. And I hope we can soon say the same about the Philippines in that sense. We started in 2000, setting up an example, because when I started with permaculture, I also felt people need to see it. People need to feel it. You cannot just talk about it. it's so easy to give lectures, but if there's no substance, it's hard. We created a center. We built something that until now is still hopefully an inspiration for other people. And all the people that came through there have been trained since 2008. We started also with doing education. We trained everyone. We didn't make any distinction between youth or old. I think everyone from the government, from private sector, young people, schools, we try to teach permaculture in such a way that people would be empowered. People could go home with something that they could hold, and they can apply it at home immediately. So I think what we did with the permaculture network, or at least we hope in all sincerity, is to set up a network of hope and inspiration. So the story continues. It's not something that you can say, no, now it's finished, we are done with it. No, it's a continuing story, and it will happen even beyond our lifetimes, I guess. So designing with nature, I mean, that's for me the beauty of permaculture, and to try and to advocate for that, and to tell people and people in power in this country that it's time for us. Climate change is upon us. It's time for us to really look at nature, give it a second chance. We all do that, but you know, to look really deeply at nature and understand how nature does it. I mean, we have been abusing it, and yet it's standing there, yet it is super resilient, yet it is telling us how we can redesign or improve our own communities in the Philippines, wherever we are, in very simple ways. And that's the amazing feat of it. So permaculture is empowering. And I think it's really about, and that's what we try to tell people, proactively engaging and not just waiting for something to happen from higher ups, from government. It's about proactively engaging, empowering yourself, and then just do it. That's what we help people to understand the design principles and then do something with it. So we have been working with the Philippine Permaculture Association and on other levels with local governments at the level of communities, simple LGUs, cities and provinces even, trying to create a bond, trying to make sure money that's there is going to the real recipients. And at the same time, we work with local communities because they have to engage government. They have to tell government, hey guys, here we are. We wanted to do something, help us. And I think that it will work for both sectors, I guess. Now, going back to your story of food sovereignty, it really resonates. Food resonates with all of us. It's a key ingredient of permaculture, as it started as agriculture. And now we look at culture as a much larger, you add music to it, but it's also about building, it's about art, it's about so many other things. Because when we talk about food, we talk about celebration, isn't it? A fiesta, we are happy.
That's right.
And if the food is local food, just like you're saying, we are overwhelmed by imported food. We take highly processed food as food, but it's really not. And there is so much to go for. I'm sure indigenous food in East Timor would be different from the foods coming from so many islands in the Philippines or in Indonesia. And if we would celebrate that first before even selling it off or before even trading it off, I think that's very important for permaculture. So weaving that permaculture thing with school systems, yes, we really are working currently with PPA on a permaculture strand CEO, their own drivers, wherever they are, whatever ecosystem is being taken care of by them. But we also look at bamboo materials, natural materials, earth, to build beautiful stuff with it and to veer away from all the hard materials that we have been working with for the past. So permaculture designing in the Philippines tries also to softscape more than it is hardscaping our surroundings, because I think sometimes I feel we're losing the beauty of our countries because of not understanding nature and not to work enough with nature to be able to do it. And then also working on housing, social housing with LGUs and private land developers. We're getting into that. I'm still dreaming for the first permaculture subdivision to come up where people live happily in this country, because, you know, the subdivision development in the Philippines is going at a very fast pace. But it's not about helping building communities. It's very often, it's about monetary exchanges, and, you know, so much is being lost in the process of doing so. And there's one wonderful thing in the Philippines. If you talk about permaculture, it's about culture, and culture in the Philippines is not just food also, but it's also bayanihan. It's about the solidarity of helping each other to be able to do something. And you know, that's something Filipinos are proud of, having that word, because you can't translate it in one word in another language. And I like that. It appears in all the different Filipino languages. It's really the solidarity of a community to be able to do something. And I think the solidarity is needed to stand up against climate change, but it's also needed to tell people, to let people tell themselves that, hey, we can do it, because it's nature that's taking care of us. Let us take care of nature. So for that sense, I think what is really important for me in the permaculture movement in this country is, before we produce for a market, I tell people, you eat that food yourself, taste it yourself, and go local. Because I think it's not about producing for market, but it's really about creating your own markets, and let people, your customers, come to you and get excited about, hey, in that island I can eat this, in that place I can savor this, and so on. So that's where the beauty comes out. That's why, as PPA, we're also working with large cooperatives that are working with farmers, and we help them to retool, because agriculture sometimes it's an agribusiness, and business comes at a high price, and sometimes people just become little tools and wheels in that system, but they are not anymore in charge. And I do believe that those who are in handling the means of production should also be the first ones to taste the benefits that are coming from such a system. So cooperatives, let them be, again, for the people, with the people. In that sense, I think permaculture can really be meaningful for people on the ground. So the level of permaculture from our end is also about publishing books. But we are not that aiming that high as you do. I'm happy Permatil has these beautiful books. I've read all of them. What we try to do is to publish books for a local Filipino market. Because we have 100 million people to go for. And I think the market is so big, and the context is so different in all our places: urban permaculture, rural permaculture. Some places have a different pace. So I think it's important that we keep the story out there, and we keep on sharing that information with others. And for Philippine Permaculture Association, it's about building a membership base, because I hope by now that we have members almost in all the islands in the Philippines. And you call yourself a member or not, it's not important for us, as long as engage with your LGU. I think your story as Permatil, working with government and having achieved that, I hope that every permaculturist in the Philippines would wake up now and say, oh, I'm going to talk to my mayor, I'm going to talk to my governor, and tell the story, and maybe we can all create mini Timorese examples in all these different Philippine isles. That would be beautiful. I would love that. So we try to apply permaculture. If you go back down, it's like as members, apply it first at home, because I think, yes, we are still very much into an island setting, even in applying permaculture. The network is still trying to come together to strengthen itself, but we need to show and live by example. I think that's very important. So the house I'm living in is a permaculture house. I store water, I clean water, I have compost toilets, and we try to teach that to other people as well, how to live simply but nicely. I'm not talking about permaculture is like lowering down your quality of life. It's about understanding your footprint on the ecology, on the climate, and on your own ecosystem.
That's right.
We do a lot of reforestation also, and I love that story from your end. I just came down from the mountain. I have a little bit of colds right now because I was up there, and we were trying to restore a grass mountain where one of the last remaining buffaloes of the Philippines is living, at the Tamarao in Mindoro. But to help in reforestation, in restoring ecosystems, so animals that are almost extinct can still live. And while people are still having a habitat to thrive in, while people, local indigenous people, still have land to till and to farm. So that kind of story resonates with me as well. And of course, the level of training, we continue doing it, all schools, all levels. I think it's really about teaching our unique biodiversity, just like you have it in East Timor. Philippines is a high, it's a biodiversity hotspot. I mean, but at the same time, I would like to focus on the positive. The biodiversity is still there. Let's help that biodiversity to survive, because that's the only thing we need for us to survive as well as a human race. You know, for me, this is almost the end. I mean, I could share so many more things, but Philippine Permaculture Association continues to do exactly what you do. And I hope we have been inspired by that, other members as well, to continue that and to keep on standing firmly, talking with the local governments and with other members. I would just say thank you, East Timor, for inspiring us. Permaculture probably is here to stay in the Philippines, just as it is going to stay in East Timor. And I think, you know, we will all be challenged now to up it a notch and to make sure that we can railroad permaculture on a larger scale and make sure that nobody is left behind. Thank you, Mr. Lemos. Thank you, East Timor. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bert. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much indeed, Bert, for your very rich insights and for sharing a lot of inspiring stories yourself. And you have to thank you for really your dedication to this and bringing this out in the, you know, out where they're needed here in the field in the Philippines. So we applaud your work for that as well. Now before I move on and call on Sherry, I would like to give way to someone in our online audience connecting from Dili. She had been a mentor to Ego when he studied at Victoria University in Melbourne, Australia. Now, after retiring from Victoria University, she has been working in Timor-Leste as professor at the Universidade Nacional Timor-Leste, in other words, the National University of Timor-Leste, where she continues to research on education and development, gender issues, and the solidarity economy, or the Bayanihan economy that Bert had just been talking about. I'd like to call now then on Dr. Helen Hill. Dr. Hill?
Still, unfortunately, I think Dr. Hill has been having some technical difficulties.
Oh, that's too
so
bad.
I think we should go to Sherry first, and then we'll go back to Dr. Hill.
All right. Yeah, let's try to go back to Dr. Hill. But again, let us then welcome Sherry, who I have introduced earlier. Sherry would like to welcome hearing from your own perspectives.
Ito yung maganda.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Shill. You have been a good mentor and a source of information for me, especially on nutrition in the Philippines, that you've been really advocating for. And thank you also, Mr. Bert Peters. I was actually trained by you in 2011 in Cabio Kid, and we actually built a bamboo house in Enchanted Farm before in Angat, Bulacan. And of course, Dr. Lemos, while, listening to your lecture, it was such a breath of fresh air. It's because you've been doing so much in Timor-Leste. I've been to Timor twice, first in 2017, because I was part of an impact fund where we invested in coffee farming in Timor-Leste for your Arabica, because your country has the highest quality coffee, Arabica, 86% in the world, And I was there because of that investment, and I saw the opportunity that you're doing is truly great and amazing and inspiring. And as mentioned to you a while ago, I was also there early this year to work with your president, Jose Ramos Horta, for the youth. And Burma Youth was actually mentioned to me. That's why your work is so admirable. I was reflecting on your points. I'm always inspired how food sovereignty should be the way. It's not really food security, right? And there's always a stigma to me. I'm a trained agriculturist and also a trained economist. There's always like a battle between the two, because food security is really owning the power of growing your own food. sustaining your own community, and and really making your community or your country successful in terms of achieving your food need. While food security, of course, it's totally with economic sense defined by the United Nations, is it's also a big solution on how do you design food sovereignty at the same time feeding a growing population. So I would start with that. In the Philippines, we have a growing population of around 118 million people. And as mentioned by Bert, I have still dreaming and working hard on how to actually, build food sovereignty in every corner of every island in the Philippines. And I just want to share with you that as per World Food Program, the Philippines also is the #1 disaster risk country in the world. We have 20 to 21 typhoons in a year. Achieving our food, security is extremely hard. That's why there's always a movement of going back. And I think I would reflect during the pandemic, we kind of made it in every country, right? When global trade of food stopped, all of a sudden, we found an empty pot in our backyard and we planted okra, we planted basil. In the Philippines, we call it plantito and plantita. We become urban farmers and backyard gardeners. So it's doable to really achieve food sovereignty. And another one, there's always a love of food. Food as the nexus to climate, food as the nexus to environment, to community, to culture. As you mentioned, we love to always gather in front of food. We love to always celebrate in the middle of food. In the Philippines, most of our meetings are actually centered in food, right? I think when Bert arrived in the Philippines, it was so hard for him to understand why meetings most of the time are in restaurants or in coffee shop. We love our food so much. So it's always been a nexus of environment, community, culture with respect to culture, and in additional economy. Food has been a source of our economy in the Philippines. And another one, I love your idea on youth. I actually started teaching farmers at the age of 12. I grew up in a sugarcane farm in Silay City, Negros Occidental. I was 11. I read a book about biointensive gardening. And then I went home. I asked my mom to give me a bike because I want to teach sugarcane workers who are every weekend just drinking alcohol in sari-sari stores. So I went, on my bike, teach them how to grow their food from the book I was reading. And the 12-year-old girl, I didn't expect that it has been my life choice. It became my profession until now. So I really admire your advocacy on Perma Youth in Agria, in my social enterprise, as well as in my nonprofit. We do a lot of programs on youth in agriculture, which is now being replicated in ASEAN countries. That's why I was in Timor-Leste early this year. It will be replicated in Indonesia as well as in Thailand. And also we also worked with the Sultan of Brunei on how to make even Brunei, as a small country with small population, achieve their food sovereignty and food security. Another one is, you keep sharing a while ago the power of youth. I do believe, as a almost youth myself, I just graduated in the youth category defined by the UN. The youth are truly the markers and makers of what define a sustainable food systems. If these youth are actually trained to understand first where their food is coming from, what's the power of their plate, and how can they decide that their choice of food is actually connecting to the planet. It's restoring our planet. It's restoring the soil health. It's restoring water health. And at the same time, hopefully it's sourced locally so that it cuts, a lot of carbon footprint that is actually very dangerous as we're talking about climate change. Another insights I think that I would like to share is really the importance of educating the consumers. When we advocate about permaculture, when I got out from training from Bert in 2011, The moment I got out from the training, I said, how do we make this happen, right? So of course, growing your own food from your backyard is number one. You cannot change the world without starting from your own backyard. And Birth was truly right to that. Start it with you, taste your food, because the food that you grow is totally different from the food that you buy from the supermarket. It just tastes, it's tastier, it's more nutritious. And then second one, we need to educate the consumers that it's not enough to have food on our plate. We need to make sure that we have nutritious food on our plate. And in advocating for food sovereignty, that's it. It's really bringing higher quality and nutritious food on our plate. It's really acknowledging indigenous knowledge, that this indigenous knowledge is actually the basic. Food is the medicine. That's how indigenous people would know it. They never bought a medicine from a pharmacy. Indigenous people, they bought medicine from their own backyard. Every time they're sick, they know what kind of leaves, what kind of seeds, what kind of roots they will harvest from their own backyard to cure their own diseases. They know what kind of food to eat, what kind of root crops could, solve this starvation. But as we grow, we tend to forget that food is actually our umbilical cord to Mother Earth. It's sad to say, a lot of young people right now, or even consumers, my company feeds 60,000 people daily. We supply food in, banks here in Metro Manila, BPO industries, digital companies that are providing free lunches and free meals to all their employees. So we supply them straight from 30,000 smallholder farmers that we work with in the Philippines. We're trying to change the way that these people, the consumers, they should not ask food that are not grown in season. Because the more you ask food that are not grown in season, the more you need to import food. The more you need to find ways that permaculture will never happen because, you're asking something that is not grown in season. So how are we doing it? We work a lot with chefs. My company works with around 27 chefs and nutritionists and a bunch of agriculturists to design how the menus are actually engineered, that it's sourced locally from our farmers and it's planned accordingly based on season from January to December in a year, knowing that there's 20 to 21 typhoons happening in the Philippines every year. So the power of educating the consumers is really an important discussion in terms of really promoting how do we transform our food systems to be better. Food systems that our farmers are trained to do conventional, how to transition the farmers to go towards sustainability, go towards regeneration, go towards permaculture, transition from just achieving a goal of food security to achieving food sovereignty, that you have your own power to grow your own food. And lastly, I also would like to share insights on the power of women. When I was in Timor-Leste, I happened to talk to a lot of young people, and most of them are women. Most of them, they really want to work on the ground. They really want to change how their food is coming from. And in the Philippines, my organization founded Forward. It's called Finding Opportunities and Roles of Women, W in the center, women, front center of our work in agriculture and rural development. In that aspect, we founded the Women Food Producers Association. We have now 6 chapters across the country where these women are in the heart of transforming our food systems. Because I truly believe as a young person, as a woman, women are so powerful. They are the ones getting pregnant. So having that, ability to nurture a baby from the womb, and really the first 1,000 days of a child is important. For sure, Sir Habito would acknowledge me with this, that based on UNICEF study, $1 investment in nurturing a child during the first 1,000 days is actually $16 savings in the cognitive development and the contribution of the child to the economy of a country. So nurturing women as the heart of the food systems is really necessary. Another one, we have a lot of women involved in the supply chain as we change the narrative of agriculture that agriculture is not a difficult job. You know, agriculture doesn't end in growing your food. Agriculture is actually growing food not in a linear way. Agriculture is growing food with a lot of collaboration with different stakeholders, including your government. Bert has been talking about it, working with your community to make it happen. You know, integration with the food supply chain, especially Philippines. You have 7,107 islands. You ship food from another island, you know, to the mainland. And another one, I think we need to really design financial innovations and how to make it happen, how to pursue the work on food sovereignty into something that everyone would buy and everyone would support and everyone would invest. And lastly, it's really about how do we grow food with respect to nature and people? Because for people, food becomes who we are. Whatever we eat becomes who we are. We become healthy of the food we eat. And whatever we produce is the way how we take care of nature. The moment we destroy nature, we're all destroyed. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sherry, for your wonderful insights. And indeed, there's so much to learn from one another in all of our endeavors in the same area of, you know, promoting food sovereignty and permaculture in particular as well. Well, at this juncture, we can open the floor to questions. Unfortunately, Dr. Hill, who we had hoped could also chime in, is having difficulties connecting. So we will open the floor now. And at this point, I'd like to acknowledge my co-moderator, Joy Alampay, who is the director of the Ramon Magsaysay Transformative Leader Institute. And she is helping in facilitating our Q&A and helping me gather the questions that are already posted in the chat box, in the Q&A box. So we would like to answer some of these questions from our virtual audience. We're also welcoming questions from our Facebook viewers. Now, I'm sure that there are many questions for Ego and our panelists. So anyway, we will go by the processing and classifying by Joy. Joy would like to say a few words first before we proceed with fielding those questions.
Thank you, Secretary Shell. Good afternoon, everyone. But Shell, we're lucky to have back with us Helen.
Oh, she is back.
Reconnected. So I think before we go to the Q&A, I'd like to bring in Miss Helen Hill for her reaction.
That's great. Yes, Dr. Hill, we'd love to hear from you. And we know that you've been a mentor to EGOS.
Miss Helen?
Hill, you're muted. Can you? Did we lose her again?
Okay, I think I saw her a while back, but I think we lost her again.
I think she dropped out again. Yeah, I guess her connection is unstable.
Yes, I think Secretary Shell, we can go ahead with our question and answer portion. There's so many in our box now, so we just like to remind everybody to type in your questions, and we will try as much as we can to accommodate all of you. Shell, I think you have several with you now. Thank you.
Yeah, let me start it off. First question coming from Nonong Velasco, who's the founder of the Alamana Farm Academy and co-founder of Organic Options. His question goes, permaculture entails a lot of planning and the resources and time to execute the plan. Given that many of our farmers, I guess in the Philippines, are kasama or tenant farmers who don't own the land and have limited financial resources, what would be your recommendations and tips to the farmers, the NGOs, and even the government for permaculture to thrive in the Philippines? Ego, what do you have to say about that? Any advice?
Yeah, thank you. I think the question, can you repeat again?
Well, again, given the limitations of our own farmers not being owners to their land, limited financial resources, how can they actually pursue permaculture?
Right. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think permaculture is already existing with the people since the agriculture, people has been implemented agriculture. But I think from the perspective of from Timor-Leste, it's important for the families to at least they grow some of the food that using their land space of land around them to reduce the cost of food. So and also according based on what Ms. Cherry has explained also, it's important to grow something locally and organic, and also it's contribute to nutrition and also harnessing our environment. So I think if every household can do that, I think we already reduce a problem of food costing, and also contribute to food security itself, and make the food sovereignty more strong. So,
yeah, I guess what you're saying is that financial resources, any substantial financial resources aren't even necessary as long as
that's
the
right.
farmer and the family can work with what is there, what's around them, right?
That's right.
Indeed. Well, let me go to the next question. This is a question from inputted through Facebook, and this is for both Ego and Sherry. What steps have you taken to encourage Timorese, and in the case of Sherry, Filipinos, to go back to the indigenous diets? What are the challenges of going back to such a diet? And how would you encourage more people in Asia and the world over to adopt an indigenous diet? I guess you've been talking about changing food habits and the modern world. So, Ego, how specifically are you convincing people to go back? And same question to Sherry as well.
Yeah, I think before passing on to Ms. Sherry, I just want to highlight that important to eating based on the seasonal. That's the most important. Because first, if you're eating based on the seasonal and it's local growing, and it's the food that growing seasonal has immunity, have supporting our health immune. So by looking today's health problem around the globe, is because the issue of the food that we're eating is contaminated with too much chemical in it. And so therefore, from my own perspective, is better to grow variety of local food, and also eating based on seasonal, because if we eat based on the demand, then the world cannot produce enough food to feed the whole population of this planet.
Yeah.
How about you, Sherry?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that interesting question. Actually, indigenous eating is no less than eating our pinakbet. Different on where you come from. Mr. LEMOS, pinakbet is this vegetables that we love so much, but sometimes it differs on it, in different location. For example, the Ilocos, they like their pinakbet with the smallest ampalaya, right? So when we say about indigenous knowledge, it's not really like you go back to eating and to forage and eat what you forage. It's not like that. It's really eating what is growing in your own land, what is suitable in your own land, that is usually coming from the native vegetables or seeds or fruit trees that are coming from your own land. Of course, there are introduction of like the lettuces of the world and the kale of the world, right? But at the end of the day, how do you eat kangkong? That it's just in our backyard? How do you eat malunggay that's just in our backyard? How you eat everything that is accessible around you, that you can plant around you? And second one is, I was so fascinated with the community I visited in Cebu. And I was just in Bangsamoro area and Mindanao area for, almost a month, studying their food systems. Every time I go to this community, they didn't want to eat rice. They were eating corn. And I was eating corn with them, because that's their rice. So there are some communities that they don't want to change their diet. It's because corn is for them, it's more filling. And corn is actually a C4 crop. The more arid, the more dry, the more El Nino you have, the more corn will grow better because it's a C4 crops, if you want to talk it technically. So indigenous crops also is necessary to promote, to push people for indigenous knowledge, to indigenous eating. I think globally, Sir Shell, I would give the best example of quinoa. Quinoa was an indigenous food of Incas. In 2014, I happened to work with Centro Internacional de la Papa, the International Center of Potato in Lima, Peru. I was there for 6 months researching how Peru survived the war. Two things. That's why they're the center of potatoes. First thing is, when their forests were all burned during the colonization, there was only crop that survived. One is potato and sweet potato because they're underground. So when the rain comes, they shoot again, they grow again. So I think in our indigenous knowledge, let's go back to what are those root crops that we actually eat as people. Another crop that they grow is quinoa. Quinoa is so hard to kill because it's an indigenous crop that grows even on arid soil, even in burnt soil. But now look at how this indigenous crop is dominating the world. That the ironic one is the Incas cannot afford to buy quinoa anymore because it's too expensive. Everyone who's living in the most expensive places in New York, they want quinoa. And this used to be the food of Incas. No one, the Mayans would eat quinoa, and now the world is dying to buy quinoa, no matter how much the price of quinoa. So I want to go back. In the Philippines, I think we need Adlay is something that a lot of our Sobanen tribes, Tausog tribe, the Sierra Madre tribes, the indigenous people there actually promoting because it's not dependent on fertilizer. The more like the environment is difficult, the more they grow, they adapt to the environment. So this is something that we need to brand, I think, our own product, like how the Peruvian brand quinoa that transformed the global diet. And I think in the Philippines, there's so much potential. So we need to continue to educate what's the nutrients that you get from all this indigenous food. Second one is the importance of this indigenous food solving our problem in climate. The third one is, because I work a lot with consumers education in the Philippines, it's really educating consumers, right? That when there's another pandemic that would happen, what will survive and how do you survive as a consumer? So a lot of them, we did a survey, most of the consumers are talking about, especially the young ones in the Philippines, they're very strong advocates of climate change. So this is a good positioning on how we can educate them to transform their diet by connecting it to climate change. That these are the crops that no matter what you do, they survive climate change and they can definitely sustain, our nutritious food as people.
All right, thank you.
Shell. I think we're very privileged because Helen has been able to connect that.
I can see Dr. Hill, and before we lose her again, we would like to give a chance to Dr. Hills to say her piece. Again, I had introduced you before as a former mentor of EGO, and of course, you're now doing work right in his country as well, in Timor-Leste. So we'd love to hear from you, your own perspectives on the work that EGO has been promoting. Dr. Hill?
That's right. Well, thank you very much. I've had some terrible computer problems here today, but it seems I've now switched over to another IT provider in Dili that seems to be working a bit better than the other one I was using. Now, I guess the reason I've been invited to speak here, I had the pleasure of supervising EGO LEMOS's master's thesis in international community development at Victoria University in the early 2000s, where he studied with a scholarship, interestingly, from the government of the Republic of Ireland, who had identified the importance of what he was studying. and thought it was worth paying all the fees it costs to study in Australia to send him to do this course. And it was during the course of supervising him, I became aware of a lot of the aspects of international agriculture, which people such as don't really know much about. And the thing that remains in my mind is that the United Nations in 2007 produced a report called Agriculture at a Crossroads, the International Assessment of Agricultural Knowledge, Science and Technology for Development. This was actually sponsored by the World Bank and the FAO and a few substantial organisations, and could have, I believe, had a role in turning the political global discourse about food sovereignty. It could have happened, but while most countries ignored it, three large agricultural producing countries, my own included, rejected it, and it sort of sank without a trace. And I think that at the government level, food sovereignty has been extraordinarily difficult to get to be taken seriously, even with scientific backup like Agriculture at the Crossroads gave. So this is why I think it's very significant that we have LEMOS from a small country, Timor-Leste, are actually showing how food sovereignty can be made to work, because politicians like to listen to words and things like this. But at the lower level, and many people here have said how it's important that it comes from the grassroots because it is related to Indigenous knowledge. And interestingly enough, although permaculture as such was first written up in Australia, the Australian government has never seen fit to fund a permaculture program the Australian government has seen fit only to fund one permaculture program in one country, and that was Cuba, because the Cuban government asked for it. They knew they'd done their research, and Fidel knew that Australia was where permaculture was first written up as a discipline. And he said, let's ask the Australian government. No other country in the world has had a permaculture project funded by the Australian government, although it looks as if it may be beginning to change now in Timor, with an Australian aid project, TOMAC, being interested in talking to Permatil about its catch management work. We are seeing the beginnings of a bit of a turning point. And I think it's interesting the way that has been able to work with the Timorese government, because although the Agriculture Ministry may not be interested, the Ministry of Education has been. And he's told you about the school gardens program. I don't know what to do. Anyway, look, I'm sorry about this phone ringing. I don't know how to turn it off. Can people still hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, and we have been working sorry, look, I'm sorry I'm such hopeless with technology. I really am. LEMOS, we have been working with LEMOS and some of the other permaculture groups in Timor. I should mention Ngartera, the Union of Farmers of Airmera. There's now a group of other permaculture groups. When I worked in the Ministry of Education, we've been talking about developing a secondary school course, really to replace the agricultural secondary school, and like called the rural livelihood schools, where in the senior secondary school, the science will be used along with permaculture schools for selected young people who have land and want to turn it into a prosperous farm, and in fact to become an educated farmer. Because I've noticed in Timor-Leste, the hidden curriculum of education says try to try to avoid being a farmer. And so the further people go up to secondary school, even if they and they turn away from the idea of doing anything with it. So this is why the Puma Youth Organisation has been significant. Now, I believe there will be a body of people, young people, who do want to do something with their land, who could be recruited into the agriculture, the rural livelihoods, which would be the reform of the existing agricultural technical schools, which are meant to train agricultural extension workers, but don't really, because the farmers don't think they've got enough experience. So that I think that we are reaching a bit of a turning point in Timor-Leste. Now, hopefully this support that EGO's got will lead to a change in the debate in the ASEAN region too, because I noticed the ASEAN leaders put out a statement last week on strengthening of food security and nutrition in response to crises. Now, unfortunately, the document shows they've really got a way to go in understanding about the importance of food sovereignty. But fortunately, I believe that in all the countries of ASEAN, there are people, maybe not well organised or well known, but are working away on issues of sustainable agriculture like permits. And hopefully this event with the Ramon Magsaysay Foundation will really help to put this on the map in the ASEAN area and beyond, of course, because the books now many countries. So I would like to thank the Ramon Magsaysay Foundation for giving this award to go. And, I really think that it could be a turning point in our discussion in the discourse on food sovereignty in ASEAN and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Hill, and indeed for also sharing your perspectives on the challenges facing promoting permaculture and food sovereignty in general. Now, let me go on to questions coming from our online audience. Here's one I'd like to pose to any of the speakers, whether Ego or Bert or Sherry. How can we promote permaculture and agricultural sovereignty in countries where landlessness, land grabbing, and land use conversion are prevalent? What interdisciplinary interprofessional approaches and collaborations can we possibly take? And I thought I'd call on Bert because you are working precisely in an environment where these problems are quite prevalent. How have you been dealing with that challenge?
It's a little bit connected to the previous question as well. I think, permaculture exactly states that care for the earth, care for people, and the fair share. And I think we have gone through land reform in this country, and we all know we have to acknowledge that land reform has been a failure because lack of support exactly for the farmers, how to maximize the land, how to do something with it. It led again to landlessness. My point is, make sure that everyone has access to land. I mean, I'm not into ownership of land. I don't think that's important. What's important is that we maximize and we practice good practice on the land to make sure that it's not being dumped, it's not being treated as just an asset that you look at like money. Everyone is into land banking, but the productivity of the land is being lost in the process. So yes, it's for people to demand their access to land. It's helping people to get that access through their cooperatives, through their leaders. And I think we have to go to LGUs and we knock on the door of mayors and leaders and tell them, hey, give these people land, help them to access. Sometimes we work with landowners who have a lot of land, but then it's about making sure that people have a kind of security. It's not only about food security, it's also about land security. I think we do need to acknowledge the fact that you cannot train and you cannot teach permaculture for people who have no connection with the land. That's why I always tell people, don't live on the 40th floor of a building. Get your feet down on the ground because that's where the action is. And I think through COVID, we have seen that. Many people have rushed outdoors and have bought farms, those who had the money to do that. I mean, we have to come down. We have to come down to the land. And it's not about putting more buildings on the land. It's really about getting excited about, the passion of things. And I think one thing we try to teach is getting passionate about nature, getting amazed by it. And then I think people slowly also understand that instead of selling off their land just to get money to go abroad, maybe they reverse that process and to hold on to the land. That's the best I can share right now, because otherwise you talk about the revolution, and we are not into that. We are into evolution. I think we need to look at a more positive way of how to make sure that access to land is not a privilege, but it's a basic human right that we should grant to each and everyone. And all the voters out there that are going to vote again on Monday, because we have barangay elections, should put that high in their priority list to their capitans and to their local councils, because that's how we will probably change the fact that so many people have no access to land. But it's important, and I like the question, but the strategies can be multiple and can be very diverse. There's no one strategy that will ensure access to land for those who don't have. So.
Thank you.
Well, before we go forward with our question and answer, we are very privileged to have another of our Ramon Magsaysay awardees with us to give some of his inputs on his work on Indigenous peoples. Sir Ben Abadjana, we would like to welcome you. Sir Ben will talk about IP Cares, which is an IP Center for Agricultural Research and Ecological Sustainability. Welcome po sa inyo.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to congratulate EGO for winning the Ramon Magsaysay Award and for your laudable work with the Indigenous peoples in East Timor. And I'm very happy to know that you very much involved in this advocacy, because that's also what we are trying to do here in the Philippines. I've been working with the Indigenous peoples for the past 35 years. And one of the things that we are very, very active about is on food sovereignty. That's why we have the IP Cares program. And at this early, I would like to invite EGO to visit the farm school in Davao. We're going to sponsor your trip together with your wife and your companion and one representative, the Ramon Magsaysay, to visit the learning farm that we have established in Davao. This is actually a hub on sustainable agriculture, and this is where many of the Indigenous peoples are learning permaculture and other technologies on organic farming. Right now, as we speak, there are more than 100 Indigenous farmers and leaders here in the Ramon Magsaysay Center for a 3-day workshop on land and security. This is a very important event because not only because we are celebrating the Indigenous Peoples Month, but we have this program sponsored by the Global Affairs Canada and New Zealand Embassy. The project is called Land and Livelihoods Project. And the purpose of this is to help Indigenous peoples secure their ancestral domain, while at the same time help them improve their land through sustainable agriculture and enterprise development. Last month, we had a forum of IP women-led enterprises, and we are supporting almost 100 enterprises all over the country, using their indigenous knowledge in utilizing local resources, and these are land-based enterprises. And we have a marketing center just in the other building of the Ramon Magsaysay. This is where the Indigenous peoples also have their mentorship on agriculture and enterprise development. And it also serves as their marketing hub on the products that they are producing. Our main strategy is really through education. That's why we are offering a 4-year degree course on agripreneurship and it's being supported by the Commission on Higher Education in partnership with different state universities in the Philippines. And we are also, soon we're going to offer a vocational school on agripreneurship as a follow-through of the program, senior high school program that we are offering for the indigenous peoples in Luzon and Visayas, Mindanao. And the focus is really on sustainable agriculture and combining it with enterprise development. And because we believe that the indigenous youth are the next, the stewards of of the indigenous knowledge not have been very fruitful, because I think I would like to believe that I have learned more from them than what I have learned from the university. There's so much wisdom from the indigenous peoples, both in agriculture, in medicine, and any other disciplines as well. And that's why I'm very excited for ECHO to be with our indigenous farmers in Mindanao, so that there will be an exchange of experiences and ideas, particularly in permaculture and organic farming. And the farm is 100% run by indigenous youth. And that farm is also the hub of the indigenous. Now we're working with the IPs in Guatemala. They will be coming to the Philippines for a learning exchange program. This is being sponsored by the Global Affairs Canada in February. So if you're interested, you can also send some of your farmers to the learning exchange in February. But first and foremost, we need you to visit the farm in November 13.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben, for sharing what you've been doing as well. Indeed, as we can see, there's a whole community out there, outside of the confines of our respective countries, even doing work in this area. And I guess the idea is to bring and link all these initiatives together. So anyway, our time is running out, but I did want to pose one last question. It just collapses 3 questions that we have been receiving into one. And I guess I'll start by saying food sovereignty and permaculture are big words, according to this member of the audience, and not as popular as other causes. So how can an average citizen relate to these causes more and promote it to more people? And related to that is a question: what is the one key takeaway that you would like people who don't know anything about permaculture and indigenous farming to have after this forum? And perhaps, again, just related to that, I might as well throw in a third question related: how do we produce more ego lemoses in our midst? So I'd like to ask each of the 3, Ego, and then Bert and Sherry, to each comment quickly on those questions. How do you sell permaculture and food sovereignty, in fact?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Seal, again. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think simply for the food sovereignty, there is a simple term that eat what we grow and grow what we eat. So I think that's a simple term for food sovereignty. And for permaculture, I think as we discussed today a bit long, but simply if we could start permaculture, start from our individual and with our family, I think that's as at entry point for everyone to using permaculture, earth care, people care, and fair share. So 3 ethical permaculture that it's important for to be applied every daily life. Thank you.
Bert?
Yeah, I mean, when we go to communities, I would always go to the backyards, to the whatever wilderness is still there. I would not go to the market first because the market is already blurred. We are blinded by food that's not coming from our areas, and I think that makes people not really connected with food sovereignty, and we're starting to eat different dishes, like what Sherry was saying. We want our tomato every day, but it's impossible to grow tomato every day. So if you walk into the backyards, if you walk into the wilderness patches, you see so many edibles. And I do believe also, like what you said about the potatoes, Sherry, earlier, it's underground. That's where we should also look, because that's the most sustainable one. And you know, the best foods I have eaten in this country is taros, because they grow everywhere, and it's so nice to eat with a little bit of coconut milk. The skin of santol, sinantolan, it's such a simple food, but it's so nice to eat. You know, it's not about expensive things. It's about reconnecting with amazing, well-tasting stuff that's all around us, and then putting that again on the food map, putting that on your own local food map, because then you show people, you know, you go to small carinderias, and sometimes you start demanding, oh, I would love to come back here, but instead of all that brown food, give me something more colorful, something more green. People will produce, people will give you their local food. They just are afraid and ashamed, that as if we all need to eat meat and the things that you're used to in the... So, you know, the Philippines is still so rich. And if you look back in the forgotten places, it's so easy again. And then the big words become very small. How many regions, how many ecosystems that produce so many different things. And, you know, I'm still tasting things I have not seen. I'm 33 years in the Philippines. You know, I'm still discovering new things to eat. So I think we can continue doing that for many, many more years to come. So let's do that.
Jerry, that's where this is the moment.
Wow, thank you so much, Sheila. This is such an inspiring discussion. I think we need to have a lot of social behavior mindset shift, you know, regarding this one. But I always believe in the power of education. Like, for example, the school garden that EGO is doing, we need to institutionalize that also in our Department of Education. Because I remember, I think all of us here, when we went to school before, you have your own garden. You need to take care before you go home, right? So I think that's one. If we integrate that permaculture that they're doing in Timor-Leste in our education system, that's really a key to educate from young person where their food is coming from, the importance of indigenous culture and knowledge in it. And then second one, I always believe in the power of marketing using the chefs. Because for me, when the chefs in the Philippines, for example, okay, it's cool to be chefs, you're cooking whatsoever food, very foreign. But I admire those chefs who are really shifting their businesses into sourcing local, farm to table, educating every person, you know, what's in their food. And in the UN level, part of my work, actually, I work with the Chef's Manifesto, where we have now more than 5,000 chefs. 30% of them are Michelin star chefs. We work with them to educate what can you make out of the indigenous food. So like, for example, last year in Dubai Expo, we brought a chef from Ireland and we gave him seaweed from the Red Sea. What can you do with the seaweed of the Red Sea? That's an indigenous food that's forgotten. So he made an ice cream, everything like seaweed. So the power of the chef, they are a point of advocating to consumers. If you put the supply value chain, the chefs are always in the 12 to 13 outlet, but they have the voice. They're being advocated by their consumers. So for me, it's one, you know, educating, the institutionalizing in the education system, the chefs really making sure that they are a true advocate, that where the food is coming from and how the food is being grown is something that would help in changing this, contributing to this paradigm shift of making food sovereignty and permaculture not only a fad, but a lifestyle that everyone should do.
Indeed, indeed. And that's what makes for sustainability in the food system in the end, right? Well, anyway, let me make a meager attempt to synthesize this very, very rich discussion. I think it all would center on what Ego has been sharing with us, this saying, eat what you grow and grow what you eat. I mean, the essence of food sovereignty and of permaculture, indeed, is making best use of what we have, what we are able to grow most easily. And as Bert was also sharing his own experiences, by the way, Bert, sinantolan, you mentioned that. I've been eating sinantolan for the past several weeks from, again, very literally, this is from the peel of the santol fruit. I'm not so sure if you're familiar with that, Ego, but there's a very common fruit that was just in season, and the peel is normally just thrown away. And yet, you know, if you sort of, some kind of a pickled preparation, I love it. And I think Bert has discovered that too. But that's the point really, is being able to make good use of what's widely available. And of course, Sherry mentioned malunggay or moringa, which is also over the place, a very important component now of feeding pregnant women and lactating mothers. So these are all very, very readily available food around us and very easy to grow. And I think in the end, that's the whole point of permaculture and of using permaculture to attain food sovereignty and ultimately food security. So the other thing I wanted to highlight was how Ego tries to make good use of not just agriculture, but culture itself, to make permaculture something more easily saleable, especially to young people. And I guess that's one of the answers to the question, the last question that was just posed. I remember an open discussion I was in just a few weeks ago out in somewhere in Mindanao. And there was this person who said, you know, agriculture in this country, the problem is not so much the agri. The problem is the culture, and how people, in fact, have been, among other things, going for the wrong crops, eating the wrong diets. And indeed, what you're trying to advocate all this time, Ego, as I can see it, is precisely focus our diets, focus our production efforts on what is most readily available, what is easiest, because they're part of our very surroundings. And so I believe this is a movement that has really gained ground in a lot of places, certainly in Timor-Leste, thanks to you. And of course, here in the Philippines, you've seen initiatives coming from Bert and Sherry and Ben and many others, actually. And all of these are really helping promote this ideal, I believe, of food sovereignty, where we can really all determine the kind of food we eat and the kind of people we turn out to be because of that. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank my co-moderator, Joy, as well, for helping in facilitating this discussion. At this juncture, I think we would like to record this gathering in posterity. So I believe there's a request for a photo opportunity. So
yes, sir. Thank you.
I'd like to pass on to you, Poch, to guide us on this.
Okay, thank you, sir. At this juncture, would like to request for a photo opportunity. We would like to call on our awardees, Sir Benji Abadiano, Mr. EUGENIO LEMOS, joined by our panelists, our moderator, Dr. Shel Habito, our president, Ms. Susan Afan, our reactors, Mr. Bert Peters, Ms. Cherry Atilano, and our co-host for today, Ms. Joy Alampay. So please, would like to request you to turn on your cameras and give us your best smiles. So we are taking a screenshot in 3, 2, 1. And another one, please, at 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Before we close our program for today, we would like to inform everyone about the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation activities that will be in store for the 65th year anniversary. The next lecture will be delivered by Ms. Miriam Coronel Ferrer of the Philippines. This will be on November 8th at 10 a.m. Manila time. This will be followed on the same day by the lecture by Dr. Ravi Kannan of India at 1:30 p.m. Manila time. You're all invited to watch the 65th Ramon Magsaysay Awards presentation ceremonies on November 11, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. Manila time. It will be streamed live on our Facebook page and YouTube accounts. We would like to thank the official media partners of the Ramon Magsaysay Awards Festival season, NHK World Japan and Associated Press. To be updated with all our activities, we would like to invite everyone to follow the Ramon Magsaysay Award on social media. You will find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. To learn more and be updated about Mr. Ego Lemos and Permatil's work, you may follow their Facebook and Instagram accounts. Lastly, please do not forget to evaluate today's program by scanning the QR code shown on the screen or opening the link posted in the comments section in Facebook and YouTube.
Full afternoon we had. Really, great information shared, so many wonderful thoughts that, again, this is one of those lectures that I think we need a part 2 and probably a part 3. So before we end, I wanted to acknowledge as well the presence of the United Nations World Food Program Country Director, Dipayan Bhattacharya, who is with us. Thank you for joining us. We have 3 other Ramon Magsaysay awardees with us. 2021 Magsaysay awardee Stephen Mansi. Steve, thank you. 2023 Ramon Magsaysay awardee Miriam Coronel Ferrer was with us as well. She's probably checking us out so that her lecture will be just as good, maybe better, right, Miriam? And then, of course, I don't think he was probably acknowledged, but Mr. Ben Abadiano was a 2004 Ramon Magsaysay awardee. It was 19 years ago when he was chosen as an emergent leader. And until now, he continues to do his work with Indigenous people. So Ben, thank you. And Ego, you're going now to Davao, one of the nicest places here in the Philippines. So I'm so happy that you're going to meet Ben's team. I would also like to thank, of course, Dr. Shell Habito for facilitating the discussion and for, as usual, coming up with a wonderful synthesis and so many takeaways that we had this afternoon. Shell, maraming salamat. Bert and Sherry, the expertise and experiences you've shared as well as you continue to advocate for sustainable agriculture was truly invaluable to the foundation. Thank you. And of course, Ego and the rest of the Permatil team joining us this afternoon. Thank you for inspiring us all in your journey. We cannot wait to see you in Manila in the next few weeks. I also want to thank the members of the Ramon Magsaysay Award Foundation Board of Trustees, our Magsaysay laureates who probably just didn't tell me they're here, but they're listening and watching, who unceasingly support our events. And lastly, the work that happens behind the scenes in all of these things is amazing. You have no idea. I'm here with Noe in front of me, making sure that I don't mess up with all of the technology things. On the other room over here are 10 other people checking out all the comments, synthesizing all of the questions, and making sure that we really don't lose our power. So I want to really thank my Magsaysay team, who is working tirelessly behind the scenes to make the lectures happen. And to everyone who joined us from different parts of Asia, either via Zoom or through Facebook or YouTube live stream, thank you for joining us this afternoon. They told me to say this, Obrigada Barak. I hope I said that correctly. Goodbye from Manila. Maraming salamat po. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.